Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
It's like, just calm down, folks. Just calm down. It is the Best Boys Center Ice podcast.
Oh, we know who's going to be doing a lot of talking today.
Can you believe me? 2025 Stanley Cup playoff wrap-up show for Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals between the Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Stars. And as you can tell, I've got my gear out. The Edmonton Oilers are going to the Stanley Cup Final for the second year in a row, after beating the Dallas Stars tonight 6-3. We will get into that in just a moment with Carson and myself. But first, want to just say the Best Boys Center Ice podcast 2025 Stanley Cup playoff wrap-up shows are
Catch
available.
Catch the shows. They're really good.
The shows on our YouTube channel, Best Boys Center Ice podcast YouTube. You can also get them through on the same YouTube channel, which we'd love to get some subscriptions on the Refocused Radio Network, which you can also find Rudy Campos Jr. and Sweep the League. And that's getting close to the NBA Finals.
Yep.
I think Oklahoma City's in.
Oklahoma City's in, and the Knicks just forced Game 6 tonight against Indiana. So
it's Indiana still leading in that. So Rudy takes care of that, and Shemaya's got a great I Am Refocused Radio podcast. You can go on to his podcast site and see some of the amazing guests that he's interviewed. So you can go to get that on the Refocus Radio Network. Thanks to Carson for all the great graphics that he does. He's updated everything. So we have.
Hey, I want to start with something real quick before we go into the games, because we talked about it this morning. We wanted to talk about it. There was a bit of a misunderstanding this morning, as there were emails that were sent out to the Washington Capitals season ticket holders to renew their tickets, saying that this season was going to be Ovechkin's last season. Now, they quickly after that remarked that, saying that that hasn't been decided yet, but I truthfully believe that this is going to be his last season, because he's already stated he wants to play in Russia before he retires, and he's already up in his age. He's accomplished anything you kind of really want to accomplish in the NHL. He's won a Stanley Cup. Obviously, the biggest thing was he took Wayne Gretzky's goal record this year. I wouldn't be surprised if this is his last season, but like you said, just a great career overall. Should this be his last season, he definitely deserves a last dance type of year. Mm-hmm. And, I've heard as well that rumblings that this could be Malkin's last year as well. I don't know about that, if that's true or not. But no matter what, for Ovechkin, this is a great season. If it ends up being the last one for him, he definitely deserves to go off in the sunset. He shaped the game for this generation that's about to be over with, Sid, Fleury, Ovechkin, even guys like Lundqvist and, others that really made people like of my age group that we grew up with watching the game. So it's cool to see that. And, crazy to see the era is almost over, but he definitely deserves the recognition and hopefully a last dance season. Should this be his last one? However, with the competitor he is, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes a couple more, but I really think this could be it. So hats off to Ovechkin, and should this be his last season? I just wanted to get that taken care of, because I think that's pretty interesting that came out this morning.
Yeah, and both you and I have never been big Ovi fans over the years. I think in recent years, we can both appreciate the player, and how he has been a part of the change. Him and Sid, really, this next generation of superstars in the NHL starts with those two guys. You can't talk about this generation of 20-year players without Sid Crosby and Alex Ovechkin. I was intrigued, of course, and like everybody else with the goal scoring record. After he got hurt, there's a lot of people think this season that he wasn't going to do it this season, but he came back and in a great OV style, he beat Wayne Gretzky's goal scoring record. It's just too bad that Washington couldn't get a little bit further in the playoffs. But hats off to one of the who will go down as one of the greatest of all times, Alex Ovechkin.
Oh, no doubt.
Whether he plays another, this is his last season in the NHL, and he goes off and plays in the KHL in Russia, and I don't blame him. You know, he's been
that's his home. That's his home. That's where he's from. He wants to go back and be
I even think he could do something like he could go play a couple of years in the KHL.
And then come back,
and then come back to the NHL. Maybe come back to Washington,
or even like a team that's like that can win right now.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody. Okay, let's put into perspective. Edmonton would be crazy if they had the opportunity not to get him.
Yeah.
If they could, or like a team because there's no reason for him to go to a team that's not going to stand a chance. But that would be pretty cool if like he ends up coming back just to go to a team that gives him another shot to win a cup.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see what happens with that. But he's definitely going to be playing in the KHL, just a matter of when, honestly.
Yeah,
but
so
we wanted to take time to do that real quick.
Yeah, we wanted when we got the news and it was kind of confusion. I said to Carson, we got to talk about this when we open the show tonight. So back onto the game tonight. It was game 5.
Someone's smiling already.
I've been smiling for the last 20 minutes after my heart was going
down.
Crazy. It settled down. So game 5 of the Western Conference Finals in Dallas. The Oilers up 3-1 after in Edmonton. The Oilers, they only allowed 2 goals in that 2-game set against Dallas. And coming back to Dallas, we both thought that Dallas is going to just take it to the Oilers because they're at home. They're desperate. They don't want to lose in game 5. They want to go back to Edmonton for game 6. And they just come out and the Oilers just blitzed them in the first period. Scory Perry, as you like to call him, gets his 7th on the power play. Just a beautiful setup from McDavid and Draisaitl. And Scory Perry, how many goals do you think he's gotten from that spot in the front?
A lot.
Of the net, the slot. It's like, come on. So he gets his 7th, made it 1-0. And then just about 4-5 minutes later, Matthias Janmark, one of our favorites from last year too, he gets his 3rd on just a beautiful play. Yep. And Jeff Skinner, who was in the lineup tonight for I don't know if he was in for Connor Brown or for Zach Hyman, but he was in the lineup tonight. He gets his first ever playoff point because he'd been playing for years and years, 1,000 some odd games.
He deserves it. He deserves that goal. And should Edmonton win, he deserves to be on the cup. This was his first time being in the playoffs, and it was kind of not disappointing because the guys they had in there deserved to be in there, but for him to wait all those years and then he plays one game and then he gets taken out to come back when you're needed the most to get to the cup final and you score a goal.
Yeah,
like that's pretty cool. That's a memory that'll hopefully they kept that puck for him because it's a great moment. But I couldn't believe it. They came out like you said, they blitzed Dallas. At the same time I was at the gym at work and I was listening to my music, but they had TVs in the gym, and so that game was on. And so I would go and do my set, and then I'd look up, okay, and Perry scored. I'm like, wow, okay, well, power play. I mean, that was a big concern for Dallas, was shutting down the power play. And then I go and do my next set or two, and I look up, and one of my favorite guys on that team, Janmark, like I told you, or made that text and made the cheesy little dad joke, Jan finally made his mark as he scored. And I was like, okay, 2-0, like, let's go. And we'll get into this in a minute, what happened after that. And then I do my next couple sets, look up, and Skinner scores. Well, I didn't see it. I saw the replay, but I was so late to it. I didn't know if it was Dallas or Edmonton. I just saw somebody had scored, and then I saw the scoreboard. I'm like, 3-0. Wow. Like basically after the first commercial, it's 3-0 already. And what an awful, awful start for Dallas.
Yeah. So let's speak about what happened after Janmark.
Oh, man.
So for Janmark gets the goal, right? And all of a sudden, well, DeVore calls a timeout,
which isn't a surprise.
not a surprise. You settle things out. I know you only get one timeout, but use it now.
It's early enough in the game where you can come right back and get
No.
something. It happened. You see that happen a lot where teams do that, and then within the next few minutes, they score a goal or something.
So Otter goes to the bench to have the meeting, and Otter's coming back to the net, and all of a sudden DeVore calls him back, and he calls Casey Smith out there, and both of us are just like texting back and forth, going, "Did they just pull Otter after okay, 2 shots on net, 2 goals, but did they just pull one of the best goalies in the league after just giving up 2 goals and put Casey Smith in?" Yeah, they did. And then just a minute later, Skinner gets his goal. So it's like, I have no idea. I will never, ever, ever, ever try to figure out why they pulled Jake Ottinger in this game. This was your do or die game.
I get it if it's like game 1 or game 2. Okay, fine. But when you're about that close to being eliminated, and not to throw shade on Casey DeSmith, I told you he's a very good backup goaltender. One of the best probably backups in the league. But you don't do that. You're a star goaltender and you pull him, and they have the opportunity to put him back in the second period to start it up, and they didn't do that. They kept him out. And you see him on the bench, he looks like he's dissociated. He's like, okay, wow, I've given my all. And, he hasn't had the best series, but he's their star goaltender. And DeBoer basically gave up on him.
Yeah.
And said, you're done. You've had your chance. And really, it's not like he's had a lot of game. Like he's due for a bad game or two, no doubt. But a lot of that wasn't his fault. His team wasn't keeping up with it. And there's only so much he can do as the goaltender. Yeah. So I was not happy that they did that. I think that was crazy. I haven't seen something like that.
They even said, Jake Ottinger can't do everything. He can't go out there and score goals. He can't go out there on the power play and score goals. And if you don't get the help, and Pete DeBoer is one of the best coaches, brilliant minds in the game, and he does this, and it's like now you.
I think it was a panic decision.
Yeah,
that he was just in panic and let's do something, but at the same time, that makes you think that that's not a panic decision because he had the chance to put Otter back in, even after DeSmith had already let up a goal, and he still didn't. He's like, okay, let's go.
We were only 8 minutes into the game. Sure. How many times has Stu let in 2 or 3 goals in the first 10 minutes?
Any goalie. That's happened.
Any goalie, it happened. And I don't know. I love the Dallas Stars, and Otter is my guy. He's my goaltender. I love Otter. And I was all night just thinking, seeing him on the bench, seeing him so distraught, seeing him his coach is just,
giving up
on him after this guy has gotten the
Stars wouldn't be where they are without him.
They would not be in the Western Conference Finals for 3 years in a row if it wasn't for Jake Ottinger. They would not be the team that is constantly a powerhouse in the West and a Stanley Cup contender.
And look at how many legacy, not like great crazy moments he's had. I look back to a series that the Dallas Stars lost, and really the series that put Jake Ottinger on the map was in 2022 when they got beat by Calgary in the first round, and everybody remembers who won that game, which was the late Johnny Gaudreau, who scored that great overtime goal. Basically with no angle. But
you keep talking. I got a prop I'm going to go get, and you just keep talking about Otter for a while. Okay.
While he goes and gets his prop. What I remember about that game, obviously I was really upset that night because that was the year the Penguins got eliminated by the Rangers, Game 7, 2022. That was a heartbreaking game to lose Artemi Panarin's OT goal. But Dallas and Calgary playing Game 7 in Calgary, and Dallas is getting outshot by more than a 2-1 margin in this game. Going to overtime in Calgary in the Saddle Dome, a really, really rowdy building in the playoffs. And the only reason the Stars got to overtime was because of Otter. They wouldn't be there without him. And then Johnny Gaudreau, the late Johnny Gaudreau, beautiful shot to win that game in overtime to send Calgary on to the second round to play Edmonton. But Otter made, I think, what was it? He had faced 65 or 64 shots, something like that. Crazy number, and he only let in 3 goals. And that put Jake Ottinger on the map and was the start of Dallas's reign as being a dominant force in the West. And then now they make the conference finals 3 years in a row. They lose to Vegas in 2023. They lose to Edmonton twice in a row, 24, 25. But as Dad and I are saying, while he's still getting his prop, you don't pull Otter. And what I was saying was how I remember Jake Ottinger being put on the map, in my opinion, and I think a lot of other people's opinions, when Calgary had beat Dallas in Game 7. And I don't know if you watched that game, but Calgary won that. Gaudreau won that game. But Calgary outshot Dallas like 64-27 in that game, and they only won 3-2 in overtime. Otter was the reason it went that far.
Yep.
And then from there on out, Otter carried them to the conference finals 3 years in a row. And you know what? I know they pulled him for a panic move, but there are a lot of guys ghosted on the Stars that weren't him. Wyatt Johnston, worst plus-minus differential in the playoffs, in a single playoff ever. Not shaming these guys, but it's just true.
Yeah.
Mikko Rantanen played not great at all in this series. He was pretty much, for the most part, invisible. Jamie Benn, their captain, not really there. Tyler Seguin had a great game 1, and that was about it. Robo found his gear getting, 4. I think it was like 3 out of the last 4 out of the last 5 Dallas goals. Rupe Hintz finally got his goal. Granlund, pretty quiet. A lot of these guys didn't show up, and they didn't give Otter help, and it's unfortunate. And I think this is going to be a dark turning point for Otter's relationship with the Dallas Stars.
Yeah. Okay, so I've said this before to you, Carson, and I've said it on our podcast for less. Even though Stu Skinner's the goaltender for my team, I think my favorite goaltender is Jake Ottinger, and this is proof of that. You see that? Okay. What Edmonton Oiler fan has not only just the Dallas Stars jersey, but who's on the back?
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Otter.
Jake Ottinger. This is how much I love his play as a goaltender. Now, okay. All right. So when I was younger in minor hockey, I played goal for a couple of years.
Oh, God.
When I played. And so you got to
He had the worst GAA in history.
I had the worst goals against. But Jake Ottinger, I don't care if he's not an Edmonton Oiler. He's my favorite goaltender. I loved watching him play when we got to see him play live.
He's so calm, cool, and collected. You know what? Like doesn't get rattled really. He just keeps going.
He just got shafted. It was like, remember back, this was before your time, but when Patrick Roy was playing for the Montreal Canadiens.
Oh yeah, he got left in all those goals against the Red Wings his last game.
9 goals.
Yeah.
And his coach Mario Tremblay, who was a former Montreal Canadian, left him in to prove a point. He comes to the bench finally after getting pulled. He goes up by Tremblay, said something, then goes back down the bench and talks to the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens and says, "I've just played my last game as a Montreal Canadian," because he got disrespected so much. To me, Jake Ottinger got disrespected by Pete DeBoer and got kind of left out to dry by the Dallas Stars.
I think that really wrecks his relationship with the Dallas Stars, honestly, because when your team needs you the most in an elimination game, when is the last time you remember the star goaltender being pulled out in an elimination game this far into the playoffs? It's very unheard of, and I would not be surprised if, maybe I'm overstepping this by a lot, but that I wouldn't be surprised if Jake Ottinger has played his last game in Dallas.
See, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what his free agency
contract
status is.
I'm going to look that up right now.
I don't know what it is, but I thought about, what I thought about that too, Carson, was I was thinking, man, does Jake want to go back to a team that treats him like this? And it's not like it's, well, okay, we've lost 3 conference finals in a row. Maybe I'm going to try to find a team that I can go and play on. Maybe in Edmonton, maybe in another team maybe in LA, maybe, in Vegas, maybe, just find a team that's on the rise. But no, it's like it's not like the Dallas Stars are going to be a bad team. They're still going to be a good team next year, depending on what they do. But I just think, Jake, if I would be like, you know what, I'm done with y'all. Not because of you guys can't play and we're in the basement of the NHL. You just disrespected me, and nope. So we'll see.
I think I was just floored. I mean, so Dallas has him until 2033 on contract, but they can trade that if they need to. And I mean, I would be like, I'm done. I'm out of here, because I've given my all for the last few seasons. And, I know I didn't start great in this game, but I have plenty of time left. And I got pulled out and didn't have any belief from my coach to throw me back in the game. And you look at him on the bench, it's not like he's there and he's engaged with the team. He's sitting there and he just looks like he's staring in outer space. He's like, I can't believe within the matter of minutes, I'm out of the game and I don't get to go back. And it's not like Casey DeSmith did much better. He really, and it's not on him, but I'm just saying, like, he really didn't play that great. And
besides the empty net goal, he gave up the rest of the goals.
Yeah. And anytime Dallas got something going, Edmonton crawled back, but just a horrible move by Pete DeBoer. That was just really disrespectful. I don't recall seeing anything like that in a long time. And one of those impulse decisions that can haunt a franchise.
I can't wait to hear what he has to say about this after, like, you'll see clips all over the internet about his post-game interview and just, why did you pull out? I want to hear his explanation of it, because it looked like it was like you said, a panic move, and it was the wrong thing, because I still believe, as much as I'm very happy and excited the Oilers won, moving on to the Stanley Cup final, but if Otter stays in there, gets to be Otter-like, makes some big saves that turns the team around, that could be a different situation. We could be going back to Edmonton for Game 6. I just feel bad for Jake.
Me too. I agree. Yeah. Horrible.
So the rest of the game, I guess we just go over real quick. So Robinson gets the goal to make it 3-1, and then in the second period, a power play goal, Rope Hintz, who's one of my other favorite players.
He looked good. He did well.
He did well after coming back from that illegal questionable call by Darnell Nurse. 3-2. So we're 3-2 in the second period. 12:27 was the goal, and then all of a sudden, you know who. And it was so funny because I think it was, I can't remember for the commentator.
Ray Ferraro, as soon as the puck went out, he's like, look out.
Oh, look out. And here's McDavid. And Rope Hintz was
he got back.
And he got back, but not enough. Connor made a great move on DeSmith to get it to 4-2 after 2. But then again, Dallas doesn't give up. Jason Robertson gets his fourth. I think he got all 4 goals in this series, I think, right?
What? He had 4. He had 4 of the last 5 because he scored both in Edmonton that they had. So, and then he scored twice tonight.
So that was 38 seconds in to the third period. And then here we go. About 2 minutes later, Evander Kane gets that, like you said, it was just a horrible bounce for Dallas, a great bounce for Edmonton. Kaner gets his 5th. And then Kasperi Kapanen, Mr. Empty Net, he got an empty net goal that sealed it with about 11 seconds left. And the Edmonton Oilers win the game 6-3, win the series 4-1. Didn't see that being a 5-game series.
And Knobloch becomes the 6th coach to reach the Cup final in his first 2 seasons. The last to do it, I believe, was Sully with Pittsburgh in 16-17. So pretty elite.
Kind of the same scenario because Sully came in.
It's so funny
during the first part of the season.
There's so many similarities between our teams and that. The last 2 coaches to do that are ours, and then the last 2 series in the Cup final go back-to-back years. Last time was Pittsburgh, and this time it's Edmonton. Yeah. Kind of funny how that works.
So this all leads up to the rematch. And we talked about it earlier in the show, the 12th time in the history of the National Hockey League. And I mean, there was a lot of, back-to-back teams back in when there was only a 6-team league, of course. But you're talking about after the expansion in the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
This is the 12th time that two teams have met and do a rematch in the Stanley Cup final. Record of that 12 is like 7
7-5 for
7-5 for the team that won the year before. But this time it's a little different. The one big difference is the Oilers have home ice, just because of the regular season. They had a better regular season record than Florida. So for the Oilers, all playoffs they haven't had home ice. Well, they get home ice for the Stanley Cup finals, and it's going to be a good one. Carson was right. Florida is just a juggernaut of a team. And I think what was said on the broadcast, the ESPN broadcast down here, you've got the juggernaut going through the East, and you got the juggernaut going through the West.
Both teams that are in the final, both were the best teams in their conference as far as this went. Edmonton had their slow start against LA, but they picked it up and rolled through the rest of the playoffs. Florida, for the most part, rolled through the playoffs. I don't want to say struggled with Toronto, but fell back the first couple of games against the Leafs, and they came right back. And both teams that are here right now deserve to be. Obviously, great for Edmonton to have home ice to play in Rogers Place, have more games there. But if you're Florida, you're comfortable playing on the road because you just won your last, now would be 5 road games because they won both 5 and 7 in Toronto. And then they won all 3 games that they played in Carolina. They're very comfortable on the road. I think, they definitely out of the two benefit more from the rest because they haven't had it. That could also be a story to the series should Florida start slow. But the first game for this series is until Wednesday night. So you imagine the Panthers probably don't fly to Edmonton until Sunday, maybe Monday.
Maybe Monday. I would think Monday.
I think you try to squeeze out as much of the beach as you can until you have to go. And for Edmonton, go right back home, and Besse and Knobloch will give them tomorrow off. You'll get both teams will be right back to skating. There's not a question, but I look at this Cup final and I think, honestly, it's really even, and it's like no team has, I feel like, a big advantage either way. The only difference can really be goaltending but Stu's been money. So, but okay, I look at this, and I know I'm rambling, but this is just my analyst talk here.
Right.
Okay. Power special teams. Both teams are amazing at special teams. I don't really think either team has a big edge over the other team. 5-on-5, both teams are great at 5-on-5. Forward depth is great both ways. Defensive play is great both ways. Goaltending has been great both ways. Home ice advantage is great both ways. Both teams have great fans and a great fan base. This is the first Cup final in a long while, I feel like, where I look at it and I'm like, this is really even. Like, really even. I don't want to discredit Edmonton last year, but I went into that series thinking Florida was a better team, and they were. Cup final 2022 or 2023 Vegas, Florida, everybody knew Florida was outmatched, and they were. But I look at this, I really don't think there's any team in this one that has a big advantage over the other one. It's going to be a combination of grinded out hockey, but a lot of scoring. There's a lot of scoring power in both of these rosters. I'm really excited. This is going to be such a great series, and one that I feel like should go at least 6 or 7 with how good both of these teams are. No team will be out of it, no matter how far away the series looks. It's going to be close the entire way.
I agree. I think 6, 7 games. We could see another classic game 7 between these two.
This is going to be one of the best Cup finals in a long while. I think this will trump last year's. Honestly, I know Edmonton had that historic Euro comeback, but there were a few games in there that weren't close. Edmonton blew Florida out 8-1 at one point. The first couple of games, Florida dominated Edmonton.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
This is going to be like really close the entire way. I'm really excited. For your sake, I hope the Oilers win it because I want to see that. But at the same time, my little competitive side doesn't want to see your team have more cups than mine. But I
I
would be
knew it. I
really,
was waiting for that.
I
was
would really be
waiting.
happy.
We're
You
like
know what?
we're like Shaq and Kobe. Kobe
Yeah.
got one more than Shaq.
Yeah, but I mean, I would be happy with either of these teams winning it. I mean, great storylines if Florida wins back to back. Great storyline for McDavid and Draisaitl to get their first. We'll see what it looks like, but I'm really excited. I know you have Edmonton winning it, but I think we can both agree as hockey fans, this is going to be such a great
It's
series to
going to
watch,
be
and it's going to be entertaining.
it's going to be like when each game is over, you're going to be like thirsty for the next one.
I know.
So they always say over. Okay, you can't wait for the next one. And yeah, I agree, Carr. I'm pulling for the Oilers because it's been since 1990 since they won a Stanley Cup, and to get back to back and like look at Florida 3 years in a row, even though that first one against Vegas was a stinker.
But even then, that year they were the 8th seed that year.
Yeah, that's right. They came from the
they made it
came from
because
the
of
8th seed.
they made it because of Pittsburgh
Yeah.
losing to Chicago, and then they beat Boston, which was the craziest series that they won that, and they rolled through, and then unfortunately just got belted by Vegas. But that's something, that's a testament of your team, Paul Maurice as a coach, to make it there. You know, they've played over 350 games just about the last 3 years, and they don't look like they've slowed down. They look like they're good. They're ready to go. They're ready to roll. They want to win the cup again. They want to be on the right side of this. And at the other end, Edmonton wants to be on the other side of it this year, where they're watching Florida go back to the dressing room, and McDavid's accepting the Conn Smythe and the Stanley Cup, which would be storybook if they did it in Rogers Place, because, you know, Edmonton had a dark decade, really, or more. After they barely lost to the Canes in 06, they weren't really relevant for a while. You know, lots of people criticized the fact that the Oilers had so many first round, like number 1 picks. You know, they had Nail Yakupov, which was a bust. And then they had
tell me about that guy.
Nugent Hopkins, Taylor Hall, which was a really high draft pick. I'm not sure if he was number 1, but
I don't think
he was a first round pick. And then all of a sudden they get this Ontarian boy, Connor McDavid, and you know, then they get the German Draisaitl, and they found a chemistry. They made that a hockey city again, and a team to be respected, and a fan base that deserves to see their team win after all those years of just, you know, the infamous Gretzky trade. Even though the Oilers won after that, I look at it as one of the worst moves of all time, even though they won a cup after that, because who trades the best player in that sport? And Edmonton had that happen to them. But then they get the next coming of Gretzky, who is a really solid player and could be going down as one of the best skilled players of all time. And they're that close to seeing that dynamic duo hoist the cup at Rogers Place or in Amaranth Bank, but I'd hope it would be Rogers Place if they win. And shut all the naysayers up and prove that the Edmonton Oilers are back. And then also it helps if they win that McDavid will lock up a contract. That's the biggest thing too as well. Should they win that, I imagine that'll be inked pretty quickly after that.
So again, and then a lot of talk is going to happen about the last time a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup.
1993 Canadiens, right?
1993 Montreal Canadiens was the last time a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup. So the Oilers have a second opportunity here in a row to become that first team since 1993, first Canadian team since 1993. That's a big monkey on the backs of the 7
because
teams in Canada, because you know hockey is associated with Canadians, and you always see the graphic where you've got all the Stanley Cups won by American teams since then, and then all those cup not won by the Canadian teams, and now the Oilers have a pretty good shot.
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Should the Oilers win the Stanley Cup, how are you going to feel afterwards? What do you think is going to happen?
Oh, it's going to be a river of emotions, because, and I know I'm a very emotional guy when it comes to my hockey team. It's going to be a river of emotions because I saw all 5 cup. You know, I saw all of them win, And you think back then, well, the Oilers are just going to keep rolling. They're going to probably have 5 more cups in the next 10 years, and it didn't happen. And then '06 comes around kind of out of the blue for the Oilers, and they almost beat Carolina in that. And then it was 18 years before they got back to the Stanley Cup final last year. It was heartbreaking. It was phenomenal to see the team not give up. Shows the heart of this team when they were down 3-0 in the series and came back to a game 7 and only lost 2-1. And it was only because of Bob's fantastic play that the Oilers didn't win the cup last year. So yes, I'm going to be very emotional. I'm going to be totally honest. It's going to be, if the Oilers win the Stanley Cup, that show that we do is going to be, you're going to have to take it, most of it, because it's, it's like,
it's 35 years.
It's like when the Chicago Cubs finally won this World Series a few years ago, after how many decades and decades and decades of not winning. So it's going to be great. But it's going
a long way to go yet, though.
Long way to go. They got to get 4. Florida's got to get 4.
This will be very interesting. Now we're going to have such a long break. Mm-hmm. You know what I think we probably will do eventually? I think I'll be able to get some stuff taken care of in the next couple of days where we can do a series preview, maybe get some of the advanced stats and stuff that we can look at and really dig deep into this series, because this is going to be a really close one, and I think one that we could really dive into a little bit more to break up the break, because it's going to be another will be now 6 days from now until they play again. Mm-hmm. So I think we could probably work something out next couple of days.
The Stanley Cup final preview. We'll kind of figure it out between the two of us, and we'll let everybody know. But stay tuned for that.
Congratulations to you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Right there. Hopefully, this one becomes true.
That turns into 2025 Stanley Cup champions on that hat. Yeah.
So thanks again, Carson. All the great graphics, and it's like everything is updated. It's just been quite the ride for us to do this. Every night, and we got at least, I think, 6 or 7 more games to go.
One thing I want to talk about too, I'm not sure if, going back to the series that just ended, I'm pretty sure you realize, but Edmonton scored first every game of the series. So that's crazy. And
Dallas has not scored first. I think they're in like 10 or 11 games.
Yeah, because they were down every game against the Jets, pretty much.
So
they need to learn how to respect their goaltender again.
Yeah, but again, like we talked about it earlier in the playoffs, the Oilers weren't the fast starting team. They weren't the team that got it. They were,
and now they are.
And now they are.
And but I liked what McDavid said in the post game with Emily Kaplan. What's the difference between last year and this year? And he said last year he felt like there was just so much going on, so much extra noise and like exhaustion almost from all of that, because Oilers started so bad and they had to come all the way up. But he said this year, it's just felt really smooth and consistent, like nothing crazy. Right. Like we're just rolling through the games and moving on. And I do look at this team and have a different feeling about them. This is the best shot that Canada has to break their curse of winning or not winning. I like the way they look personally, but just something I wanted to mention that I liked what he said, honestly, in that post game.
Yeah, it was, and they touched the Campbell Bowl. They touched it.
I don't believe in that whole superstition there. I get why they do it, but I was
telling Beth, I said, no, they won't touch it. And all of a sudden, McDavid grabs it, and I says, well, he must, because last year they didn't touch it. Florida didn't touch
at all. They haven't touched it at all.
So it's like and everybody came over and touched the bowl. And it's like, okay, so there's got to change this crazy superstition up a little bit.
It's fine. It's fine.
We got a lot of hockey yet, Carson. Yep. Over all of the 2025 Stanley Cup playoff wrap-up shows are on our YouTube channel, Best Boys Center Ice Podcast YouTube, available on the Refocused Radio Network. Thanks again, Car.
You're welcome.
Thanks with the graphics. And until we talk again, we'll let you know when we're going to do our Stanley Cup final preview. But we'll be on for the wrap-up show next Wednesday after the game, which is a 7:00 start here. So again, our usual time, 10:30, and I'm over the moon. I'm excited. When your team makes it to the whatever league, it makes it to the championship game. it's always special, and it's great in hockey because you get at least 6 or 7 of these things, not just one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap this up by saying, as I always do, because it's Carson's favorite thing to hear. In the meantime, and in between time, everybody have a great hockey night.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.